Peace, peace. This your host, Selah Shalom, and this is the Cosmon teachings in the words of Yehovah and his angel ambassadors from the Cosmon Bible of Waspi. And the topic of discussion today is called the Triangular Wars of Osiris, Baal, and Ashta'arth. Now, this video goes into the details about the Shepherd kings that were expelled from Egypt between the 3rd and 6th dynastic. Many stayed and were subjected to the strict laws of the Egyptians. And this is about the Shepherd kings that migrated into Greece, Europe, being the Etruscans, the Minoans, Mycenaeans, and the people of Anatolia, which is modern-day Turkey. In the Book of Wars Against YEHOVAH, chapter 52, verse 1 through 30, it states, verse 1, "Of the land of Egypt, the above is sufficient, and of Persia and Hellas, these things are the chief, as regardeth the dominion of Osiris, Baal, and Ashta'arth, to wit." Verse 2, "Because of the persecution of the Phaethus and the Shepherd kings and the Lycians, these people fled into Persia, Hellas, for hundreds of years, and they built cities and established kingdoms." Verse 3, "And none of these accepted the Lord or God or Dais, but for the most part worshipped the Great Spirit. Nevertheless, they were not faithless in purity, for they engaged in war and lived not in communities, with rabbis as rulers, but dwelt together after the manner of warriors." So here is showing you that the people that were expelled out of Egypt for not accepting the gods of Egypt, they migrated into the regions, certain regions of Persia and certain areas of Europe, and they established their own cities and kingdoms, worshiping the Creator, but still lived after the manner of warriors. Now, verse 4, "To Baal and Ashtaroth was committed the duty of subjugating these people unto Osiris, Savior of mortals. So Baal and Ashtaroth, finding them stubborn in the worship of the Great Spirit, finally resolved to make them destroy one another after the same manner as Tian in Japheth and Sudga in India. And they asked Osiris for armies of warring angels for that purpose. Osiris gave them the following great angel generals and high captains, to wit." Verse 5, "Now here are the armies that Osiris gave to Baal and Ashtaroth to overthrow these cities in these regions." Verse 5, "Jah, Apollyon, Petoris, Platona, Hiram, Ben, Yobi, Elijah, Ares, Sawang, Tikrono, Aphrodite, Argo, Oyed, Nadar, Abel, Sed, Artemis, Yaktaroth, Wab, Josh, and Haor. And besides these there were the following deserters from Tian and Sudga, to wit, Klu, John, Isaiah, Yamyam, Luth, Bar, Ho, Kadam, Athin, Hira, Okeanos, Hermes, Poseidon, Urana, Hace, Tisodas, Rakrom, Makak, Tol, Tez, Wawaska, Sur, Elajax, and Hesmion. Now these are the names of the armies that Osiris alluded to Baal and Ashtaroth to subdue the people in Europe. And if you notice some of these names that they mention of these angels, you could find traces of these names in legends in ancient histories coming out of those countries. Verse 6, "And Baal and Ashtaroth cast lots for each of the above generals and captains. Turnabout they chose, until they were divided equally between them. And Osiris gave to Baal and Ashtaroth each 500 million warring angels. And thus armed, they descended to the earth, to the objectional regions of Persia and Hellas. In those days, these great divisions of the earth were divided into many nations and kingdoms." So here is showing you that they divided the generals, and now they're going down to the earth to subdue the people into worshiping these deities. Verse 7, "And the kingdom was not measured according to the land, but according to the number of cities that paid tribute to the central city, though some kingdoms had but one city." So here is giving you the breakdown on how a kingdom is measured, according to those who pay tribute to the central city. So if the central city is, say, in Egypt, and you got cities in China paying tribute to it, that's an extension of that kingdom, as an example. Now verse 8, "These then are some of the largest cities that Baal and Ashtaroth determined to destroy, to wit, Suyan, with 500 tributary cities, Lakeo, with 200 tributary cities, Hangun, with 8 tributary cities, Was, with 3, Logah, with 6, Tol, with 6, Sun, with 5, Tos, with 4, Troy, with 6, Abed, with 2, Athens, with 12, Hes, with 4, Etuna, with 12, Phaedo, with 10, Tuna, with 7, Wakiat, with 7. And besides these, there were many large cities without any tributary cities, which were also doomed to everlasting destruction. Verse 9. The first great city thus turned to war on each other were Hugan and Logah, Ashtaroth choosing Hugan and Baal choosing Logah. So here is showing you how Ashtoroth and Baal are choosing each country for the battle. It's like a game they're playing here. And we're the chess pieces, literally. Verse 10. These 2 cities were both of more than 400 years standing, and contained each 500,000 inhabitants. Besides their tributary cities, Tujak was king of Hugan. He was the son of Soma, who was the son of Athias, the necromancer, and of Logah, Turiah was king. He was the son of Day, son of Bon, the philosopher. Verse 11. When Baal and Ashtaroth, with their armies from heaven, came near to these cities, they halted and built a temporary kingdom in the mountains of Zoe. Verse 12. Baal said to Ashtaroth, Behold, thou hast had the choice of cities, give thou me the first assault. Verse 13. Ashtaroth said, On thy own terms shall these battles be, and I will beat thee to it. Then set on Logah. So here Ashtaroth and Baal are competing about who's going to win and overthrowing each other's city. So this is a game to these angels. While we, on the other hand, got to go through the suffering and disaster of these events, while they get to pick and choose which souls are going to populate their kingdom the most. Verse 14. Baal went to Turiah in his dream and told him his son was waylaid by the people of Hugan, and moreover, that Tojax had determined to come upon him and possess the city. When Turiah awoke, he was troubled about his dream, and he inquired of the oracle concerning the matter. Ashtaroth had possessed of the oracle, and she answered the king, saying, Thou art of the seed of the faithless, why farest thou for a dream? Have a caution of thy dreams. Tell not thy son, for this day he goes on the hunt, and thy words might bring about even that which otherwise might not be. The king went his way, but Ashtaroth sent inspiring spirits to the king, saying, To caution thy son, that would be wisdom. And the king went and cautioned his son. So if you could see the scale of deception that these angels are doing, playing games with mortals through their dreams and through the oracles. Verse 15. And Ashtaroth then went to Tojak's wife and gave her a dream that the prince of Logah went on a hunt to all appearances, but came near Hogan for a very different matter, which was no less than the slaying of herself and husband. And the queen awoke suddenly and in fear and told the king her dream. Tojak said, verse 16, Foolish woman, it was but the fault of thy diseased blood, which coursing the heart gave thee a foolish dream. Tojak dismissed the matter. On the next day the angels kept inspiring the queen to send her servants to the place of her dreams, to which she acceded, and her servants were armed with spears and instructed to kill whoso came in their way, as if by accident. Verse 17. Thus it came to pass that Turiah's son was slain. Turiah inquired of the oracle, and was answered by Ashtaroth, saying, Why cometh thou to me for comfort? Is not thy son dead? By thy own fault I said unto thee, Mention not the matter of thy dream to thy son, for it happened that telling of the thing bring it to pass. Verse 18. Turiah said, I am justly revoked, O Apollyon. But tell me, thou that knows all things, since one part of my dream hath come true, may not the other part, and of a truth? Tojak came to possess my kingdom. Ashtaroth said, If I tell thee, thou wilt blab about, and do nothing in thy own defense. Turiah then made oath to obey the oracle, whereupon she commanded him to march with all his armies against Tojak, and suddenly demand satisfaction and 10,000 lives to balance the loss of the prince. Verse 19. This ended Ashta'oth part with the city of Loga, and now she went to Hugan, while Baal took charge of Loga, sending his legions of angels to the people of Loga to inspire them with madness because their prince was slain. Now, if you could see the scale of deception and trickery that Baal and Ashta'oth are using to make these nations war against each other, first by using the dreams and convincing mortals to believe in their dreams, and then by going to the oracles and believing the words of the oracles. So here we're just showing you the scale of intelligence that these angels are using to overthrow nations. And these same examples are played before us today. Verse 20. And Ashtaroth on her part now assumed control of the oracles in Hugan, and sent her warring angels to the people of the city, advising them of the justice of slaying the prince, because he was come not on a hunt, but to slay the king and queen. And Ashtaroth further told the king Tujak, try thou me as to my truthfulness. Behold, in 2 days the warriors of Turah will be at thy city's gate. Be thou ready for them and drive them hence, or lo, thy city wall will be reduced to dust and ashes. Verse 21. Of course the prophecy of Ashtaroth came true, and Tujak now believed he was in the protection of the gods. The queen said unto him, a matter of weight is on my mind, O king, and I commanded my servants to slay the prince, for the gods showed it to me that only by this could thy life and mine be preserved. Verse 22. The king, Tujak, justified the queen, saying, thou hast been the preserver of my life and thine. Verse 23. Baal, god of Loga, thus marched the mortal armies against the city of Hugan, while Ashtaroth marched the armies of the later place to battle against them. Verse 24. And thus, as mortals play a game with sticks and pegs, so played this god and goddess a game with these mortals of these two great cities. Played, gave, and take to see the battles lost or won. And they used their legions of angels to inspire the mortals on, or to make them at times turn and flee. And while the gods rested, amusing themselves by feasting and by talking over the sport of mortal death, the two great cities would also gain a little rest, but only to renew the bloody work. So here is basically showing you how the angels rule over mortals as play. Verse 25. For 4 years the gods and angels kept these two mortal cities at war, and though they lay a day's journey apart, all the way was streamed with the bones of the slain. And in 4 years they were reduced to dust and ashes. And as to the people of the last year, for the most part they were annihilated with the poisoned air of the dead, and they died also. And yet it came to pass, Baal beat Ashtaroth in the battle of death, for he caused all his people to be slain, while yet a few of Ashtaroth remained. Verse 26. Thus did Baal and Ashtaroth pursue the other great cities of Persia and Hellas, and the time of destruction of any 2 or 3 cities varied from 2 years to 10 years. For the destruction of Athens and Troy it required 12 years, and for the destruction of Atuna and Phaedo it required 11 years. Between Sugan and Lachaeo it required 2 years to bring them to war. Between Athens and Troy it required 3 years to bring them to war. 200 vampire angels of lust were set upon a prince of Troy, and in desperation he was driven to kidnap an Athenian prince, who was led to exposure by Baal's angels' host. In this great battle Ashtaroth won the game, having succeeding in having the whole of the Trojans destroyed. So this is why, like, when you look at the ancient Athens and Troy, those civilizations were completely wiped out. Nobody remained alive. And all we have is the remnants and the ruins of these civilizations as we look today. But according to Oaspi, these nations were completely wiped out through the warfare of Baal and Ashta'oth. That was the purpose of Baal and Ashta'oth, to destroy as much as you can in these regions. And the purpose of killing the people, like I said, is to win the souls of these people, to populate the kingdoms of Baal, Ashta'oth, and Osiris. Verse 27.